The Elite Recruiter Podcast has multiple summits coming up that you need to make sure that you are registered for. We have the AI Recruiting Summit 2025 coming up. And on top of that, finish the year strong. These two summits are going to help you move the needle, help you achieve your goals, help you achieve your dreams, and make 2025 the year that you started out and you wanted it to be. Make sure you get registered and also stay tuned. We got something cooking for you guys. Working on another project that you guys are going to absolutely love. All right. See you guys at the summits and see you guys soon. Enjoy this episode. Coming up on this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast, what advice would you give to me to have a successful career in recruiting?
The first thing I would say is to get certified. The second, I would say stay curious, follow a process. It's just not instincts. It's not your gut. You just can't say, oh, I found my cousin a job, so here I am, a recruiter. My typical email, thank you very much for the time. This is my strengths. This is how I think I could fit for your association and why I'd be the best candidate. I threw that out the window. And I just said, hey guys, I don't know if you were feeling it, but that was the most disconnected interview I ever had.
Welcome to the Elite Recruiter Podcast with your host, Benjamin Mena, where we focus on what it takes to win in the recruiting game. We cover it all from sales, marketing, mindset, money, leadership, and placements.
I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast because getting around recruiters, getting around other recruiters can absolutely change the game. You never know what you can learn from just a 30-second conversation. And yes, it's great to do virtual coffees. It's great to do virtual summits, which I love putting those on. But sometimes getting in a room with other recruiters that you respect and learning from them is an absolute game changer. And this is me coming off of a conference. I was just with the Pinnacle, looking forward to the next conference I'm going to be at NAP. So I'm so excited to have NAP CEO Trinette here with us to share really just about what's going on. We're going to focus on everything with certifications, everything when it comes to industry and legislation. But we're also going to talk about how the recruiting world has changed and what we have to look forward to and the opportunities that we can take advantage of. So Trinette, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Benjamin. I'm excited to be on here.
All right. So quick, before we start jumping into the wonderful world of recruiting, a quick 30-second self-introduction.
Sure. I am the CEO, president of NAPS, and that stands for the National Association of Personnel Services. I'm going on 11 years with being with this association, NAPS. I love it. It's great. My background, however, Benjamin, is in association management, and I started with that. I'm going to be dating myself, but I started in about 1995. So I would love to talk about the power of associations and why everyone that is in a professional industry should find their professional association and get involved and join. And so for all the recruiters and staffers out there, NAPS is your home.
Awesome. So you've been around the association world for a while, and living close to DC, around the DC metro, associations do a lot behind the scenes that are we'll say a recruiter never actually sees.
Right.
But before we start talking about that, there are so many associations out there. Did you fall in love with recruiters? Why was your calling the recruiting world?
I don't know if it was my calling as much as I did stumble into it. So you mentioned about associations. There's an association for everything. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the importance and behind the scenes of what associations do. But how I came upon NAPS and recruiting is through ASAE. They had posted, and when I say they, it was the NAPS board. They were looking for a new president/CEO. Somebody from ASA knew that I was looking at the time for a new association, and it was just a really great fit. But I have a funny story to tell you. So to be interviewed by recruiters and going through that process, I just had so many expectations, and I thought they're going to know what they're doing. And so I'm not going to name names, but the process to interview for this association, it was kind of laughable, actually. So my first round, I had 4 different recruiters that were on the NAPS board interview me. One person would ask one question, and then it was just questions fired one after another. But what I thought was so amusing is I don't think they were listening to each other, and I don't think they were paying attention to the questions that the one recruiter was asking. So say one of the board members who was doing the interview would ask me a question. 5 minutes later, another board member would ask me a question. And it was so frustrating. I hung up and I wanted to send a follow-up email thanking them. But I just said, you know what? That was crappy. That was not a very good interview. And I have to say it was not because of me. So my typical email, thank you very much for the time. This was my strengths. This is how I think I could fit for your association and why I'd be the best candidate. I threw that out the window. And I just said, hey guys, I don't know if you were feeling it, but that was the most disconnected interview I ever had. And we didn't talk about this, this, and this. And oh, it gets better, Benjamin. So I just said, I have nothing to lose. Just to be completely honest. I fired it off. And then the four of them, instead of just replying to each other, they replied to all and included me on their response. And mind you, these are recruiters. And they said, wow, based upon her just being so completely honest, I say, let's move her to the next round. And like I wrote back and I said, hey guys, yeah, I'm down with that too. Next time you might want to make sure you don't reply all. So yeah, so that's how they found me. That's how I got started. And, ever since that moment, that is how we've always interacted. We've just been completely honest, direct. And I love that. Some associations are very, I don't want to say they're not proper and professional, but they're down to earth, they're honest. And I think it was just a really good fit. So that is my story with interviewing for an association of recruiters. It was comical. So.
And I take it you probably put a little more structure in since you started, right?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Well, before we jump in, so I'll be honest with you, it was probably a good 10 years in recruiting before I even heard of NAPS. For those that are just like,
okay.
Yeah, I just saw you cringe.
Well, thanks, Benjamin.
But that's the thing. That's the reason why I want to have this conversation. There are a lot of recruiters that just don't know about the associations out there. Like, why is NAPS important for a recruiter?
Well, I always tell people certification. So we have one of the oldest certification programs. And I think it was founded in 1961. And so what I hear a lot when people call, they'll say, hey, I just found my cousin a job, my best friend a job. I want to become a recruiter. And they think they are a recruiter. And there's really, Benjamin, no entry into this industry. There's no professional requirements necessarily. I mean, we have human resources HR classes in colleges and things of that nature, but there's really nothing. There's no professional standards to say I'm a recruiter. So what we have found in our industry are a lot of people say they're a recruiter. They think that they can do this. They're completely unaware of all the requirements on the federal requirements as far as legislation, things such as questions you can ask, job postings, how long you have to keep records. They are completely unaware of this. And they realize this once they mess up and then they're no longer in the industry. So I think it's really important for people who are in our industry to have that certification because that designates them that they understand the industry, they understand the laws, and they also understand the ethics. So that's something that the association, we really promote the code of ethics and professionalism. So I always say to candidates or even people who are looking to partner with a recruiter, look for that designation, look for that certification. So we have a number of certifications, but that lets them know that this person has taken the time. They are completely aware of all the legislation impacting our industry, as well as the code of ethics and professionalism. So that really sets you apart. So
you guys have what, 3 certifications?
We actually have 4. Oh. So the most common is the CPC, and that's a certified personnel consultant. So that's more for the direct hire. And then we have the CTS, and that's a certified temporary staffing. So what it says, that's more for the staffing. And then we have the CERS program, and that's more for a firm. And then we have what's called NAF, and that is the accreditation firm as well. So we actually have 4, but we really focus mainly on the 2, CPC and CTS.
Okay. And where can somebody go and learn about more of those certifications?
At our website, naps360.org, and there's a tab that says credentialing. Just hit that, and it will tell you so much information, probably a little too much because people don't look at it and instead they call me. You do have to maintain your continuing education each year. So once you do get your certification, and that is a process. I was looking for my manual. I think it's about 300 pages. And a lot of people are unaware of how in-depth the program is. And it is all, no, I shouldn't say all, 90% legislative. And the other 10%, we go over the best practices, code of ethics, what the NAPS program consists of. But yeah, you can go online and you can learn more about it. You can learn about maintaining your CEUs. And like I said, you do have to maintain that every year. You have to have 20 hours of continuing education, 17 of which have to be administered through a NAPS coach or member or through NAPS. The cost is $600 if you're not a NAPS member and $300 if you are. And yeah, it's a great program and you can sign up, you can register. I encourage everyone to go to our website to get more information if they have questions.
Okay. And you've talked about legislation a few times. Like, you guys do, like, I hate to say this, us recruiters, we live in a bubble. We're talking to our candidates, talking to our clients, all day long. But there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that actually impacts us, right?
There is. So yeah, independent contractor classifications, non-compete laws, federal and state employment regulations. So yes, all of that. But I took the certification exam and I did both CPC and CTS, and I thought it was going to be easy. So I wanted to take it. I took it in 2020. I started with NAPS in 2013. So it took me a while to do it. Listen, I tell people I am not from the recruiting and staffing industry. So if I could take it, and I always tell people, especially Tom Erb, who I scored better than Tom, by the way. I have to say that. It was just extremely eye-opening, Benjamin. I never thought of everything, all the laws and the legislation, and then it just goes into best case scenarios or all these different kind of scenarios as well. So the exam is true and false, multiple choice, and then they give you case studies. And I need to say this as well, that manual and the exam, it is updated every year. And the team that does it is Littler Mendelson Employment Law. And they do an amazing, amazing job. So there is just so much legislative updates. It's almost once that manual is done, we have to do an addendum, like the next day or something. So we don't do a printed version. That's why. So Littler Mendelson, they have just done legislative updates monthly to our members as well.
I feel like just watching like what's happening out there, legislation is just moving at like record speed and trying to keep up with the cities and states and all the things that like we don't think about that impacts us, but actually does.
It does, yes. And so when it comes to like a state state legislation, we really had depended on or relied on those state associations to lead that charge, if you would, because the National Association of Personnel Services national. So it's almost impossible for us to manage everything that's going on the state level. So that's when we really would rely on the state associations to lead that charge.
Awesome. And you guys also put together an event too. Can you talk about that?
So we have our annual conference and it's called Ignite. So that is taking place this year. It's going to be June 8th through the 10th at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. We changed it up a lot this year. We were always in the fall. Well, when I say always, the last 20 years, we've been in the fall. What we found is, oh my gosh, the fall is just crazy with holidays, the other industry events, such as, ASA staffing world. It was just, we were stepping on each other. And it wasn't so much an issue for our attendees, but it was for the vendor community. So what we decided to do is, I think 20 years ago, we did it in the spring, but the state associations that I had mentioned earlier, they wanted to have their events in the spring. So we're like, do your events in the spring, the state and local associations, and NAPS will move their annual conference Ignite into the fall. What has happened is that, like I said, that fall is just such a congested time period for us now. And we've seen that a lot of the state and local associations have folded. So we decided to move back to that space. So yeah, I know June I guess it's technically still springtime. So this is the first time in, like I said, 20 years that we are now in the spring.
Now, because you're in charge of NAPS, you probably see a lot of changes in the recruiting world. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen like impacting recruiters?
I would definitely say the biggest right now is AI. if I had $1 or $10 for every time one of our members or vendors says AI, NAPS would not need to have an exhibitor or sponsor. So AI, DEI, and also I would say just talking about mental health and recruiting. Those are some of the biggest changes that I've seen since I've been here.
So mental health is like a thing now. Like, I mean, I've been a recruiter for, just shy of like 2 decades. Like mental health, like wasn't talked about for the first 10 years. It was like, you come grind no matter what. Like, why has mental health now become an issue that people are talking about?
So I don't know that a lot of people are talking about it. So maybe that's why you haven't heard it, but I think that's something that you're going to see more recruiters talking about. So let's go back 5 years ago in the pandemic. During COVID, we had a lot of people, not a lot, I think the majority of the workforce, Benjamin, worked from home. So there was a lot of mental health implications that came from that. Just the stress from working from home, managing that work-life balance. So from the recruiter standpoint, that has really taken a toll, all those challenges that came from the COVID and from pandemic. So that is something that I'm hearing a lot more being discussed with the different groups that I'm talking to. And when I say different groups, I do communicate with the other different industry associations, such as ASA, SII, and Tech Alliance. So that is one of the things that we're starting to see kind of a trend in mental health and just putting that kind of in the forefront of the discussion. I know we always talk about AI, DEI, but don't be surprised if you see more topics with mental health.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. And if you want to get laugh, like AI, if I can go like a day without talking about AI, I think it would be a great day.
It's just popping up everywhere. So yeah. And I fall prey to the whole AI trap. I have my cat is now singing, songs, and that's all because of AI. And yeah, it's a good time.
I mean, it's amazing. Like, I've talked about this on other podcasts, but like stuff that would take me like a day to do can now be done in a matter of minutes. But it's now, making sure that recruiters are, focusing on the right things and actually getting the job done. AI to become like the shortcut that shorts them out of their job.
Exactly. Right.
So, with artificial intelligence and how AI is changing and how I think the industry is going through a transformation right now, like where do you see NAPS in the next few years?
Oh boy, I would love to say where I would see NAPS is just to be the leading association for the boutique firms. So when I say boutique, we represent a niche market, if you will, in the industry of recruiting and staffing. So when people call, especially the vendor community, and I always tell them, listen, I'm going to tell you, understand who NAPS is, understand who our members, who our conference attendees are. If you're coming to conference to get a quick sell, or if you're joining NAPS to do the same, that's not going to happen because we are so unique. If you want to go to a massive trade show and get tons of sales right there, go to another show, go to ASA. But if you're looking to form those long-term relationships and be more one-on-one, and not only at the conference, but also through the association, through your membership, then the NAPS is the place for you. Our members are those boutique firms that the majority of their work that they do is direct hire, and then they dabble a little bit in the staffing. And I think that the demographics for both the NAPS membership as well as our conference attendees is about 85% are those boutique firms that have, 2 to 10 employees in their firm, that they focus mostly on a specific industry, whether that's pharma, tech, hospitality. And then the remaining 15%, I would say, that 10% are just exclusive to direct hire, and then the remaining 5% is staffing. So where I would love to see NAPS, say, in 10 years is just if you fit in that demographic, to come to NAPS, find your home, don't get lost in another big association that's really not a good fit. And for us, it's just really important that anybody in the industry, whether you're a vendor or you're a practitioner, understands that not every association is going to be a fit, but this is what NAPS is. So like I said, if you're that boutique, smaller firm, niche marketing, come to NAPS, let us grow our membership, let's grow our conference attendees, and really push certification and the importance of that in our industry.
Awesome. Before we jump over to the quickfire questions, I know we cover everything from like legislation to certifications to like the importance of naps. Is there anything else that you want to share about naps before we move forward?
I think our conference, so networking is huge, especially for this industry. So I would say, a lot of us are just so busy and we're caught up working remotely or just working in our office or whatever our situation is. But it's so important to network. And that's one of the key reasons people belong to professional association is to network, to come and learn best practices. Just make the investment in your company. Come to our conference and talk to your peers, learn about best practices, share notes. I don't know, maybe even, share some candidates, do a split fee agreement or whatever. You can do that. But I just think it's really important to come to the conference. You're not going to get lost. We are a fun group. We have tons of education and it's intense. We do a lot of sessions during the day, but we also know how to network in the evenings. I love hearing from people after they get back to their office and they're like, wow, I really needed that. Didn't know how much I was kind of in my own little space, and just getting out and talking to like-minded individuals and in our association is ignited, if you will.
Awesome. All right. Jumping over to the quickfire questions, definitely with your vantage point of seeing so many trainers, seeing so many recruiters, seeing so many boutique firms. If somebody was just starting off as a brand new recruiter, like you were just talking about earlier about like, Jim wanted to place their cousin and now thinks that they're a recruiter, but then they call you up and it's like, you know what, with everything that you see and the people that you get to meet, what advice would you give to me to have a successful career in recruiting?
The first thing I would say is to get certified. The second, I would say, stay curious, follow a process. It's just not instincts. It's not your gut. You just can't say, oh, I found my cousin a job, so here I am, a recruiter. I definitely think that understand the process and just take your time and learn about the industry, learn about the rules, the regulations, everything that will impact you, and get involved and network.
Same question, but for somebody that's been around the block, we'll say 5, 10, or maybe even someone like myself, almost 2 decades.
Yeah, I would say for them, don't plateau. Don't just say, okay, I've been here for 10 years. I know everything. Keep learning, mentor somebody, show up, come to the conference. I think really quickly, Benjamin, to go back to the mentoring, because our industry has such a low threshold in saying, hey, I'm a recruiter, or I'm not a recruiter. That mentoring is so important. And we do have a mentoring program where we've been trying to launch it for the last year, and it's part of our Women in Recruiting. But we want to formalize that mentoring program, and that's just so huge. It's giving back to the industry. I mean, we all remember starting out in our respective industries. And I know I would have loved to have had a mentor saying, as an association management professional, I'll take you under my wing and tell you best practices or what not to do. And these are the conferences. So just help somebody out in industry, but also, again, don't plateau. Don't assume you know everything. The certification program that I keep talking about, why it's so important is, like we had talked about, we put that manual out and the next day there might be legislation that has made it archaic already. So don't assume just because you have your certification that you know everything. We do an addendum at our conference. We have a certification class. But yeah, I would say, so somebody new, get certified. Somebody that's been in the industry, don't plateau.
Do you have a book that's had a huge impact on your career?
I would say there's a couple. But Slight Edge by Jeff Olson is one, and Dare to Lead would be another. And those would be kind of my professional books that I would say. But another one that more personally, do you remember Stuart Scott from ESPN?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read his book, Every Day I Fight? I would say that one as well. So more on the personal side, but definitely can apply some of those principles to my professional.
Now, I know you're probably not using all the wonderful AI, XYZ tools that recruiters are getting pitched on a constant basis, but for you, like what you're doing on the association level, like with the recruiters, like is there a favorite tech tool that you cannot live without?
I use Your Membership. I can't live without that. That's our CRM membership software. And then Constant Contact is another that we use to get out our messaging. We can see, everybody uses, I'm sure, are familiar with Constant Contact. So we can see what really resonates, the open rates and things of that nature.
What has been one of the biggest failures that you've had to work through and learn from?
Oh, I would say thinking I can do it alone.
Okay.
I've had to just trust not only my team as far as the staff, but also learning to kind of lean in to the board of directors and just really building a team. I always thought I could do everything, do it by myself. And that would be something I've realized that it's okay to say that I'm vulnerable. And I think that goes back to one of my favorite books, Dare to Lead. It's just talking about vulnerability is really power, And so coming to your board and saying, listen, our metrics are, whether it's for membership or conference, they're not where they should be. Guys, why is this? What's the problem? Why are people not joining, or why are people not attending our conference? And it's kind of just admitting, I don't know everything. I'm vulnerable. The association is vulnerable. What do you, as the recruiters, what can you do to kind of help me put this puzzle together? What's the missing piece that I'm not seeing? And so for the longest time in my professional career, I thought, hey, it's good. It's a good thing to be independent. It's a great thing to be strong. It's a great thing to know everything and to know all the answers. And I'm just learning, no, that's not the case. Really lean in to your peers, lean in to those who work with you, whether it be in the office or in your board. If you belong to an association such as SNAP, just really lean into people. And that is probably my biggest failure. And it's probably one of my biggest accomplishments that I'm proud of, just saying, hey, I don't know everything.
You sound like a recruiter. We always are Superman or Superwoman. We can handle it all. Dang it.
I know, based upon my interview with NAPS, you all can't do it all.
I love that. Well, with everything that now, with working with the board, learning about the recruiting space, helping the board also get their interview process better.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the chance to go back in time and sit down with yourself, we'll say after your first few months of NAPS, what would you go back and tell yourself? What kind of advice would you give yourself?
Listen, do more listening. So I came into NAPS, and for the first 6 months, I just turned everything upside down. I changed the different membership classifications. I changed our branding. I changed just pretty much everything. And I was so laser focused, and I just had tunnel vision, and I didn't listen. I just came in, I said, this classification doesn't make sense, or the way this is, it doesn't make sense. It was great in a way that we changed a lot of things as far as closing loopholes on membership and stuff like that. But I didn't listen. I didn't listen to the staff as much as I should have. And I didn't listen to the board as much as I should have, because you think you may know everything. And if you just take a pause, and I wish I would have paused a little more in those first 6 months.
Awesome. I think that's all of us early on. You get a chance to talk to a lot of recruiters at NAPS. You get the chance to interact with a lot of firm owners. You get a chance to chat with people about certifications and what's working and what's changing and that kind of stuff. With all these questions, is there a question that you wish a recruiter or wish a firm owner would actually ask you, but almost never do?
Sure. I would say, what keeps you up at night about our industry? Because if I knew that, then that is something that we could tackle. When we have, say, our content planning calls, that's one of the questions I ask. What keeps you up at night? Because you're not alone. And I'm sure if you're thinking about this, then that is probably everybody else is thinking about this. And that's something that we need to address.
That is so true. Now I'm thinking, what keeps me up at night? This has been a fun conversation. For anybody that wants to follow you, how do they go about doing that?
I would say LinkedIn is the easiest place. Trinette Cunningham, I'm there. LinkedIn, Facebook. Yeah.
Awesome. And before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I would say engage with your association, and hopefully that association is going to be NAPS. Don't go at it alone. This industry moves very fast and you need to have a team around you. And that's what NAPS is. And I would say if you want to stay relevant, just plug in and participate.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. I know I'm going to naps, but I think one of the secrets about going to events is what happens in the networking after the event. And I've seen that over the past, few years, the learning is amazing. Like you're energized, you're moving forward, but it's those conversations with your peers that you can have in person that just can absolutely make a world of a difference. So whether it's, a NAPS or a future event this year, make it the year to go do something in person. Go see other recruiters, go network, because you are who you hang out with. So I believe we can all grow together. So keep crushing it, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
The Elite Recruiter Podcast has multiple summits coming up that you need to make sure that you are registered for. We have the AI Recruiting Summit 2025 coming up. And on top of that, finish the year strong. These two summits are going to help you move the needle, help you achieve your goals, help you achieve your dreams, and make 2025 the year that you started out and you wanted it to be. Make sure you get registered and also stay tuned. We got something cooking for you guys. Working on another project that you guys are going to absolutely love. All right. See you guys at the summits and see you guys soon.